Hi everyone, this is Jeff Casper, the head of marketing for TAB. Thanks for joining us on this installment of the out-of-home office hours at TAB. Today's topic is discussing how television audience is measured, which is quite important to understand some of the nuances behind the numbers that our clients are using to judge television against out-of-home advertising. Here with us today is an old friend of mine, Craig Jaffe. He and I started in the business together at Young & Rubicam many years ago, and he has gone on to do some great things at Y&R and Zenith Optimedia, both in TV research. After that, he moved on to different networks such as TV Guide and Univision, also doing TV research, and he has run his own consultancy over the last 5-6 years. And he is we are very grateful to have him join us here today to talk about something that's near and dear to his heart, how television audience is measured. So Craig, welcome, and take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeff.
One last thing. This also will be recorded, so if you want to download it after the fact, just contact us and we will send you the link to our YouTube account. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks again, Jeff. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to walk us through our subject matter, which is measuring television audience. My name is Craig Jaffe, and I'd like to thank the TAB for hosting us today. We'll begin with a few fun facts about TV. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and I'd like you to take a couple of seconds to think about your answer. So here we go. How many TV channels does the typical household have? Okay, just take a few seconds, think about it, but we will answer it for you. Okay, the answer is 200 channels, but keep in mind that only 17 channels are generally watched. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. How many TV programs, thank you, how many TV programs air in prime time each night? In case some of us need additional clarification on what prime time is, it starts at 8 p.m. and ends at 11 p.m. So as you can see, the answer is 400 programs. But this is a little bit of a trick question because the answer is really based on how many programs are measured and reported by Nielsen for each night. So that number can actually be higher. So, but regardless, a viewer can realistically only watch one program at a time. So let's go on to the next question. How many hours of TV does the typical person watch during an average week? All right, take a few seconds just to think about it, and we'll give you the answer in just a minute. Okay, let's do that. The answer is 34 hours a week, but how do you really define what watching TV is? And we'll get to that later in the presentation. And so now we're on our final question for our fun facts. How much money did advertisers spend on TV last year? Again, just take a few seconds, process that information. Okay, the answer is $73 billion, but how many billions of dollars are spent in out-of-home? So I know that's very important. Let's go on and now talk briefly about the business model of TV. Okay. Advertisers invest some of their marketing dollars in TV by negotiating with television networks and local stations. So their commercials will air on TV programs that are supposedly seen by their target audience. And that's how the networks make some of their money, through advertising. On the other side of the equation, distributors like Comcast, DirecTV, Verizon, they pay the networks a fee for the right to broadcast their signal. And the majority of all of this money is exchanged based on a network's ability to prove its performance. And that's where Nielsen ratings come in. Nielsen measures who watches television, and that gives the networks the metrics they use every day to conduct their business. But the networks pay Nielsen a significant amount of money to obtain access to this database of viewership information. Keep in mind, Nielsen is a for-profit business and retains ownership of the data. So how does Nielsen know who's watching? And how do they collect the information? And of course, is it accurate? And we'll first take a look at what is a TV household. A TV household is a home that must have at least one operable TV set or viewing monitor. This definition includes households that may only have a broadband connection. So possibly no television set, but only a computer. And that's a rather small percent. So let's go on to the next slide. Some quick stats show us that on a national basis, 95% of homes in the U.S. have TVs. This is an aggregation built up from a local basis where Nielsen segments the United States into 210 local markets, also called DMAs. In summary, these markets are defined by TV viewing preferences and TV stations that are licensed to serve local communities. But how do we know who's watching, and what is Nielsen really measuring? Okay, so we'll spend the bulk of our time talking about Nielsen. Towards the end, we'll touch a little bit upon ComScore and Remtrack. So Nielsen measures in-home audiences of televised programs, and they do that by taking a sample of households in the United States, one big national sample and many little local samples. It would be cost prohibitive for Nielsen to try to measure all the 116 million TV households that we saw on the previous slide. But when you watch TV, what's actually being collected? So let's say you go home tonight and you watch The Big Bang Theory from 8 to 8:30 p.m. On a national basis, Nielsen is monitoring every minute of your viewing from 8 o'clock to 8:01. 8:01 to 8:02, so on. And so since they're commercials, keep in mind Nielsen is measuring not only the program that you're watching, but the commercials as well, at least on a national basis. On a local level, however, Nielsen doesn't report commercials at all. So before we move to the next slide, there's one thing you should also keep in mind about commercials. On a national basis, Nielsen only reports an average viewership for all commercials within the program. So that means if you're Toyota and you run a commercial in The Big Bang Theory, you don't know who really watched because it's being averaged in with all of the other commercials that ran within The Big Bang Theory. There are no individual commercial audiences. So maybe you DVR'd The Big Bang Theory and you decided to watch it later. Nielsen measures that and accounts for the commercial viewing as well. Currently, advertisers negotiate most of their deals with the networks on something called C3, and that includes how many people watched the program and the commercials sometime during the last 3 days without fast forwarding through the commercials. So, as a friendly reminder, there's no commercial audience reported on a local basis. So, how does Nielsen do all of this? What are the boots on the ground tactics that they actually use? Nielsen identifies all TV households in the United States. They then use a random probability technique to find who they should contact. And if the people agree to participate and be a Nielsen family in the field, a field representative from Nielsen visits their home. Alternate households have to be contacted if the original people do not agree to participate. And I'm not sure about you, but if Nielsen asked me to participate, I probably would say no. Okay, so I'd probably be categorized in the alternate households, or at least I would say no if I was a basic household. So they would have to find somebody like me, and that would be called an alternate household. So once the field rep is in the house, they wire a special meter to all TVs in the home. After the installation is complete, the field representative from Nielsen then talks with the family members about how to participate. Family members are given a special TV remote with buttons on them that are assigned to each member of the household. When each family member watches TV, they're instructed to log in by pressing their assigned button. This is the technique used to measure TV viewing. A similar technique is used if the family members watch on the computer. So on a local basis, the same technique is used in top markets, but only the top 25 markets. There are 45 more markets that use electronic measurement mixed with mathematical modeling, as you can see on the bottom half of the screen. And on the top part of the next slide, which includes the 14 DMAs in the small markets. There are 140 markets in which Nielsen asks its respondents to fill in a paper diary to record their viewing. And here you can see some of the advantages electronic measurement has over paper diaries. And I'll let you, since we're going to be, you'll have access to the presentation, I'll let you go through that. So in recent years, Nielsen has tried to improve its panel methodology. Okay, we'll skip over that. So Nielsen is just to kind of let you know, Nielsen is a big company. And it faces many challenges. And are the numbers accurate? Are they measuring people in the most effective way? So here's a recent criticism reported in Ad Age. It was actually a few weeks ago. It voices a common complaint leveled at Nielsen. Many believe it's important to measure viewing on mobile devices like phones and tablets too, so there's a complete picture of how many people really watch a particular show. And they are trying to address that now. In addition to these complaints, however, Nielsen has other challenges that threaten the accuracy of their data, and I'll briefly touch on some of those challenges in the next slides. Okay, let's start with the recruitment of Nielsen families. Okay, is it successful? Yes, but only 60% of those who are statistically chosen agreed to participate and have the field rep visit the home to install the meter. Okay, and in terms of other challenges they face, please keep in mind something called non-compliance. So let's assume you do agree to participate in the sample, and the field representative from Nielsen coaches you what to do and how to participate. And that's going to depend on whether or not you as a Nielsen family will in fact follow instructions and make sure that you're pressing your buttons whenever you're watching TV. In terms of the number of people who are actually providing usable information who are installed in Nielsen sample, or I should say the Nielsen families, about low 80s to 90% of people who are installed are actually providing usable information that Nielsen can use to report back out into the industry. So it's important to keep in mind Nielsen's methods actually demand people to really do something. It's not completely passive. Another challenge they face is something called faulting. So oftentimes, like I said before, Nielsen is a big company. There are a lot of moving parts, and they have a lot to coordinate on the back end. And sometimes data is missing or inconsistent. Another aspect that can lead a Nielsen family to fault out of the sample is unmetered equipment. Let's say it's your birthday and a family member or friend buys you a new TV today. and you're a Nielsen family member. Well, obviously that television is not being metered, and therefore viewing would be not reported in the Nielsen sample. Nielsen would then be forced to kick out that family member for a short period of time until a field representative had a chance to go and visit that household and meter that new television set. Remember, all TV sets in the households need to be measured. Additional hurdles that Nielsen needs to overcome includes things like forced turnover. Now let me just spend a second on that. So let's say you're part of a Nielsen family and you're participating in their sample. So the question then you may have is, how long can you participate? Well, the maximum time that you're allowed to participate as part of a Nielsen family is 2 years, and after that you're forced out. But oftentimes families naturally attrit out of the sample because a lot of us are mobile, we're moving for various reasons to other locations and other homes. Additional problems that Nielsen faces, again, is kind of on the back end, verifying lineups and taking into account scheduling delays and challenges. Keep in mind, sometimes the normal programming that you're watching will be delayed because of emergency weather, the president speaking, or various other things. I'd like to jump down to ad verification as well, since we talked about commercial ratings. In terms of the viewership, so sometimes Nielsen is not able to accurately verify the ad schedule that's running in the programs. There are challenges specific to that. And of course, there's also things like response error and reporting and administrative errors as well. Well, let me, before I go on to the next slide, make a quick mention of visitors. So we had the Super Bowl recently, as we all know, and I don't know about you, but I had some people who actually visited my home and we watched the Super Bowl together, and they're regarded as short-term visitors. Did Nielsen count them? No, they did not. And so that goes as unaccounted viewing, which goes to show you that sometimes Nielsen's measurement system is imperfect. It's not capturing all viewership. If they were a long-term visitor, then they would be assigned a button on the meter. So in terms of the local samples, they have their own unique challenges. And it's primarily the result of using mixed methodologies, sometimes using electronic metering along with some kind of modeling technique or using paper diaries for people to record their viewing in. So in many DMAs, here are a bunch of the problems I laid out for you. So it comes down to non-continuous measurement. So think about it for a second. If you're filling out a diary, how long would you expect to fill out that diary? Well, the diary is a 7-day book that you would fill out. Nielsen is not going to ask you to fill out a diary 365 days of the year. And so they rely on 4 months out of the year: February, May, July, and November. Now, when you need to fill in a paper diary, you're basically forced to either actively participate and fill out the diary every 15 minutes while you're watching TV, or you're forced to recall what you watched after the fact. Maybe you don't have the diary with you. And so as a consequence of that, some of the lower rated networks will be underreported, like cable viewership. Also, a problem that affects local samples is small sample size. And with small sample sizes, it also means that Nielsen's data about viewership is less stable in those particular instances. I do want to mention one thing: zero cell. It's kind of a very interesting phenomena. So I mentioned earlier that on a local level, sometimes, depending on your market, viewership is measured electronically. And it's measuring the household tuning. And in some of these markets, the demographic information is retrieved and collected by the paper diary. but maybe the person didn't fill out their diary, but there's household tuning. That doesn't make any sense. And so that's what's referred to as zero cell. So I mentioned before that there is an alternative to Nielsen. The biggest player in the market is Rentrack, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with the latest news about ComScore and Rentrack merging together. So Rentrack's methodology is a little bit different. Actually, it's quite a bit different than Nielsen's. It's based on set-top box usage. And it's essentially reporting local TV station viewing that includes live reporting of TV stations viewing on mobile devices. And essentially what Rentrack is doing is they're collecting return path data. And it's really dependent, their entire business model is really dependent on the companies that they work with, participating cable, satellite, and telco operators, or what we call MVPDs, multi-channel video program distributors. And so what Rentrack does is they then take the set-top box data, they calibrate it, they attribute audience to it, and they project it nationally, and they report it out. But I don't know about you, but when I turn on my TV and when I turn off my TV, that's a separate device from the cable box. And so sometimes I turn off the TV, but the cable box is left on. So does that mean Rentrack assumes that I'm viewing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? So there are some issues associated with Rentrack's methodology that the industry is still working through. So at the end of the day, I'd like you to take away a couple of major summary points here, and that is Nielsen is the major provider of all TV metrics. But they have different methodologies depending on the market. It's certainly a different methodology nationally than it is locally. And in our space that we're talking about, ComScore, Rentrack are really posing themselves as the latest challenger to this methodology. So the second point is Nielsen is a sample-based methodology. And so what does that mean? It essentially means that respondents need to be active. They need to take action. It's not a passive activity, and it's dependent. It's highly dependent on a person following the instructions, pressing their buttons, or filling out their diaries to make sure Nielsen has the viewing information that they claim that TV networks are generating. And lastly, Nielsen measures commercial ratings, but only on a national basis. We'll call the national commercials the national market. But actually, on the local side, there's no commercial ratings whatsoever. The one last part I want to impress, and it's really an expansion of this last point, is despite the fact that Nielsen does measure commercials nationally, commercial audiences nationally, they can't do it by individual advertisers. If you recall, Nielsen is averaging up all commercials within a TV program. So again, if I'm Toyota and I want to know how I did, I'm not going to know. It's the viewership to my commercial has been averaged together with all of the other commercials in the TV show.
So thanks, Craig. I appreciate your time today. This is his contact information in case you want to reach out to him with any further questions or if you need help understanding this medium. Certainly, in our cases, in particular in the local market, advertisers are faced with the decision on how to allocate their budget across different media types. And I thought this was very helpful in helping all of us understand some of the good things about TV measurement and also some of the pitfalls that our advertisers need to be made aware of when they make a decision. I appreciate you being here today, and see if there's any questions that anybody has.
Quick reminder, you can just insert your questions in the questions box, write them down, and press enter, and we can take a look at any of those that you may have.
All right, here's one from Jill. What is the sample size that Nielsen uses?
Okay. Good question, Jill. Thank you for the question. They're currently so it's gonna depend on what market we're talking about. So they up until recently had 22,000 households that participated in their national sample, but they recently expanded their sample to 41,000. And that, if you take into account that there's approximately 2.5 people per household on average in the United States, that rounds up to roughly about 100,000 people that are participating in the sample. So about 40,000 homes, about 100,000 people. But I do want to make mention of the fact that some of those sample, some of the people participating in the sample are being used in the local service as well, and they're pulling double duty, contributing both to the national ratings and the local ratings. And so can we actually say that Nielsen has a sample of 40,000? Yes, they do, but it's a little bit of a tricky issue there to explain. But I don't believe everybody is really counted in that way. It's an effective sample, so I'll leave it at that.
So that's on a national level. What about on some of these markets?
Right, and so on a market-by-market basis, it's going to vary widely. And so sometimes you have, I think on average, I think it's around 800 households that are participating in each market that Nielsen measures.
In the entire DMA, 800 households.
Well, certainly in the top markets that are using more accurate measurement, like electronic measurement, like local people meters in the top 25 markets. I think the top markets like New York and LA and Chicago, I believe they have about 800 to 1,000. But I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not exactly sure. As you get to smaller markets, the sample size decreases.
So you had 140 markets that were diary only.
Correct.
What would be the range of sample there?
It's a good question. I don't have the exact answer, but keep in mind, not everybody is, going to be watching a particular program. So I used the Big Bang Theory as an example earlier in the presentation, and so let's assume that in one of the smallest markets, let's say the sample size is 200 people, and so you have 200 people filling out their paper diaries, but only maybe a handful of those people are actually watching any individual program at any given time. And so you may have a situation where you have, let's say, 15 households that are watching the Big Bang Theory in that particular market. And so it's those 15 households that are actually determining the viewing information that's reported by Nielsen in that market for the Big Bang Theory. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Great. Well, with that, let's close up shop. Thank you, Craig, for your time.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
And we hope you find this useful. And again, just contact us if you want a copy. Talk to you next week.